Welcome to a journey far beyond the boundaries of time, a descent into the most profound, ancient quiet our world has ever known. Tonight, we are leaving the noise and the endless rush of the modern surface far behind us. We are traveling safely back hundreds of millions of years, not to witness the fierce survival of the prehistoric era, but to discover the deeply restorative, unbroken peace of the primordial abyss. This is an immersive sleep aid experience, perfectly designed to synchronize your breathing with the incredibly slow, deliberate rhythm of the ancient deep. As we drift downward into the heavy, comforting waters of the prehistoric ocean, allow the gentle, pendulum-like motion of the current to completely wash away your tension. Simply close your heavy eyes, take a long, deep breath, and let the ancient tide carry you safely into rest. Close your eyes and let the weight of the day simply wash away, carried off by a slow ancient tide. Imagine a world far removed from the rush of modern life, a time millions of years before the first footsteps ever marked the land. We are sinking gently and safely into the prehistoric abyss. The water here is cool, heavy, and infinitely calming. There is no urgency in this deep sanctuary, only the deep, rhythmic heartbeat of an ocean completely untouched by the passage of time. Above us, the surface of the ancient sea is calm, kissed by the soft, diffused glow of a prehistoric moon. The pale moonlight filters down through the depths, casting faint, shimmering, volumetric rays that sway like slow-moving pendulums in the water column. There are no sudden flashes here, no harsh glares to disrupt the tranquility, only the gentle, shifting twilight of a world at absolute rest. As you breathe in, imagine the quiet waters wrapping around you, cradling you safely. Suspended all around us in the cool water is a mesmerizing, silent snowfall. Millions of tiny, delicate particles, drifting marine snow, fall through the water column in an endless, hypnotic dance. The marine snow catches the faint moonlight, twinkling softly, before continuing a slow, eternal descent to the ocean floor. This marine snow is the visual white noise of the ancient sea, a gentle cascade that lulls the mind into profound stillness. Watch the particles fall, down, down, down. In this serene expanse, primitive life moves with a deliberate, dreamlike grace, drifting effortlessly on the unseen deep-sea currents are the gentle ancestors of the jellyfish. The ancient jellyfish bodies are translucent, glowing with a soft, natural bioluminescence that pulses strictly in time with the ocean's slow rhythm. The jellyfish do not actively swim. The jellyfish simply breathe the heavy water in and push the water out, a continuous, soothing expansion and contraction. Notice how the heavy, dense prehistoric water dictates the movement of the jellyfish. Every pulse is met with a soft, natural resistance, creating a beautiful, extreme slow-motion ballet. The ancient jellyfish are perfectly suspended, weightless in the dark blue void, with long, delicate tendrils trailing behind like ribbons in a soft breeze. There is no destination for the jellyfish to reach, no rush to arrive. The creatures exist purely in the peaceful, ever-present ancient moment. Let your gaze drift downward, following the drifting marine snow as the soft particles settle onto the ancient seafloor. The bottom of this prehistoric ocean is a vast, rolling plain of fine, silty mud, bathed in the deepest, most calming shades of charcoal and muted aquamarine. Here, the deep water is thick and silent, a sanctuary of deep time. The soft sediment remains completely undisturbed, save for the incredibly faint, rhythmic trails left behind by the earliest, quietest inhabitants. Emerging slowly from the cool shadows is a small, peaceful wanderer, a solitary trilobite moving with unhurried purpose along the seabed. The trilobite's segmented shell, beautifully smoothed by years of gentle water currents, reflects the faintest glimmer of the ambient moonlight. The trilobite does not scurry or rush. Instead, the trilobite's many tiny legs create a mesmerizing, rippling motion, a slow, methodical crawl across the ocean floor, taking life one deliberate step at a time. Look closely at the trilobite's ancient, rounded shell. You can see the peaceful signs of a long life lived in perfect harmony with the sea. Tiny, ancient, barnacle-like hitchhikers have made a permanent home on the trilobite's sturdy back, and delicate strands of symbiotic flora wave slowly in the microscopic currents the trilobite creates. These are not scars of prehistoric conflict, but beautiful physical memories of tranquil survival, a miniature, moving garden of deep sea life. As the trilobite continues the gentle journey across the mud, the ancient creature pauses, sensing a microscopic shift in the water pressure. The unseen deep-sea current is changing, ever so slightly, signaling the slow, majestic turning of the prehistoric tides. The trilobite settles softly into the sediment, pulling its delicate legs beneath the protective shell to rest. The trilobite blends perfectly into the quiet landscape, becoming just another smooth, sleeping stone on the seabed. Above the resting trilobite, the water column remains a vast theater of slow, hypnotic motion. The drifting marine snow continues its endless, mesmerizing descent, a comforting, unchanging constant in a vast, silent world. As you watch the soft particles fall, allow your own mind to empty itself of racing thoughts, letting your worries drift away like the tiny specks of organic matter, settling onto the distant mud. You are perfectly safe here, surrounded by the heavy, comforting blanket. From the deeper, cooler shadows of the abyss, another ancient shape slowly begins to materialize. The creature is an Ammonite, drifting gracefully through the dim twilight zone. The Ammonite's magnificent, spiraled shell is a masterpiece of prehistoric geometry, a perfect, continuous coil that seems to draw the tired eye inward, deeper and deeper into a state of heavy relaxation. The Ammonite shell is heavily textured, bearing the beautiful, smooth ridges of natural, slow biological growth. The Ammonite navigates the quiet prehistoric waters with an almost imperceptible, pendulum-like motion. Soft, delicate tentacles emerge from the dark opening of the Ammonite's shell. Gently tasting the cool water, feeling the microscopic shifts in the deep current, the Ammonite moves by taking in heavy water and expelling the liquid in soft, rhythmic jets. An incredibly slow, breathing propulsion that pushes the heavy shell backward through the abyss. In and out, a natural, deep-sea metronome. There is a profound, calming sense of extreme antiquity in the way the Ammonite drifts through the void. The Ammonite is a prehistoric creature that wears the massive weight of deep time on its very back. The natural, muted tones of the Ammonite shell, deep oceanic blues blending seamlessly into dark charcoal greys, make the ancient creature seem as though it is woven directly from the water itself. As the Ammonite rotates ever so slowly, the diffused moonlight catches the perfect spiral curve. Notice how the sheer, immense mass of the Ammonite's heavy shell interacts with the dense prehistoric water. When the Ammonite stops its gentle pulsing, the heavy creature does not immediately halt. Instead, the Ammonite glides, drifting gradually to a peaceful stop, the forward momentum softly absorbed by the cushioning, heavy pressure of the sea. This is the soothing, hypnotic physics of the underwater world, a quiet place where sudden stops are physically impossible in the heavy current. As the heavy Ammonite slowly descends toward the muddy sea floor to join the resting Trilobite, the thick water around the shell seems to hum with a low, distant resonance. The ambient vibration is not a sharp sound you hear with your ears, but a deeply soothing vibration you feel in your chest. The slow, rhythmic heartbeat of the prehistoric ocean itself. The low hum is a comforting, steady presence, a gentle reminder that this peaceful world has been resting for hundreds of millions of years. Let your own breathing synchronize perfectly with the slow, drifting, pendulum-like descent of the ancient Ammonite. As the heavy shell sinks a single inch, let out a long, slow, releasing breath. As the Ammonite softly pauses in the water column, take a deep, comforting, filling inhale. The prehistoric Ammonite asks absolutely nothing of the world, and the silent world asks nothing of the Ammonite. The ancient creature is perfectly content to drift, to exist softly in the cool shadows. High above, the soft moonlight from the surface seems to dim ever so slightly, causing the dark shadows of the sea floor to grow longer, softer, and incredibly inviting. The prehistoric abyss is slowly preparing for a state of deepest, unbroken slumber. The drifting marine snow thickens in the water column, the tiny particles clustering together like fluffy, underwater clouds settling gently over the ancient seabed. The deep water temperature is perfectly cool, perfectly balanced, wrapping all. Even the gentle ancestors of the jellyfish seem to pulse a little slower now, their natural bioluminescent glow softening from a bright, pale blue to a muted, sleepy, incredibly dark indigo. The ancient jellyfish drift lower in the heavy water column, their incredibly long tendrils dragging gently, softly against the sluggish deep-sea currents. The entire prehistoric ocean is winding down, matching the heavy, profoundly relaxed feeling, taking root deeply within your own tired, resting limbs. as we drift further and further into the ancient, silent night. The physical boundaries between the cool water and the dark shadows begin to blur completely. The rounded shapes of the heavy Ammonite and the sleeping Trilobite dissolve perfectly into the soft, silty, textured landscape of the ocean floor. The ancient creatures are completely safe. The ancient creatures are completely hidden. The ancient creatures are entirely at peace in the dark depths. This is the profound gift of the abyss. Stay here for a long, quiet moment, suspended in this perfect, prehistoric silence. Let the visual white noise of the drifting marine snow wash completely over your tired mind. Listen closely to the silent, extreme slow-motion ballet of the deep, ancient sea as we prepare to journey even deeper into this tranquil, submerged world. Carry this profound, ancient stillness inside you. Drift. Breathe deeply and let the incredibly slow, heavy prehistoric tides carry you safely, gently away. As we descend further into the prehistoric twilight zone, the soft, diffused moonlight from the surface begins to fade, transitioning into a profound, enveloping darkness. The water here feels infinitely heavier, pressing against the deep sea currents with a gentle, weighted embrace. The drifting marine snow falls thicker in this shadowy realm, the tiny particulates glowing faintly as the organic matter catches the last, dying volumetric rays of the ancient, silent night. The topography of the ancient abyss slowly reveals itself through the visual white noise. Massive, towering pillars of prehistoric stone rise silently from the muddy sea floor. The ultra-detailed textures of the rock, smoothed to absolute perfection by millions of years of heavy, slow-moving water. The stone pillars stand like ancient, silent sentinels guarding the deepest secrets of the primordial ocean. There are no sharp edges here, only the soothing, rounded geometry of deep time. Hovering perfectly still within the dark charcoal shadows of the stone pillars is a true master of the prehistoric deep, the Coelacanth. The Coelacanth is a living fossil, a creature of such ancient, perfect design that the heavy ocean has never asked the Coelacanth to change. The Coelacanth rests suspended in the dense water, completely weightless, defying the massive pressure of the abyss with effortless, silent grace. The Coelacanth does not swim. The Coelacanth simply exists. Look closely at the incredibly slow, hypnotic movement of the Coelacanth's unique, lobed fins. The heavy fins do not paddle like a modern fish. Instead, the Coelacanth moves the lobed appendages in a rhythmic, alternating pattern, exactly like a slow-motion walk through the heavy, liquid void. Left fin, right fin, a soothing, pendulum-like oscillation that creates absolute stability. The heavy water provides a soft, cushioning resistance against the Coelacanth's deliberate strokes. The ultra-detailed textures of the Coelacanth's heavy, armored scales are a masterpiece of peaceful survival. The massive scales are a deep, muted indigo, perfectly matching the charcoal shadows of the surrounding rock, flecked with tiny, pearlescent spots that faintly mimic the drifting marine snow. The coelacanth bears no fresh predation scars, no open wounds, only the beautiful, naturally smoothed edges of an ancient shell that has weathered centuries of quiet, deep-sea tides. Attached delicately to the very edges of the coelacanth's heavy, lobed fins are tiny, fragile strands of symbiotic flora. The microscopic deep-sea plants sway gently in the microscopic currents generated by the coelacanth's incredibly slow, rhythmic breathing. The symbiotic flora is a profound testament to the absolute tranquility of this creature's long life. The coelacanth is not merely a predator. The coelacanth is a slow-moving, living reef, hosting life in the deepest dark. Watch the heavy, armored gills of the coelacanth slowly open and close. The movement is so unhurried, so profoundly deliberate, that the breathing rhythm seems to dictate the very pulse of the surrounding prehistoric ocean. As the coelacanth's heavy gills flare outward, draw a long, slow breath into your own lungs. As the coelacanth pushes the heavy water back out into the abyss, slowly release your breath, letting all remaining tension sink down into the dark, silty ocean floor. The coelacanth begins to navigate the complex geometry of the ancient stone pillars, moving with a silent, hydraulic precision. As the heavy fish approaches a massive, overarching rock formation, the coelacanth does not dart or rush to avoid the obstacle. Instead, the coelacanth gently adjusts the angle of the lobed fins, allowing the natural heavy water currents to softly push the armored body around the smooth stone. The coelacanth flows around the geometry like thick, cooling syrup. Suspended near the roof of the massive stone archway is a resting cluster of prehistoric ammonites. The ammonites' perfect, spiraled shells reflect the deep, mathematical harmony of the ancient ocean. The ammonites cling softly to the smooth rock, their delicate tentacles tucked safely inside the heavy, armored coils. The coelacanth drifts slowly past the resting ammonites, a silent, peaceful encounter between two ancient masters of the abyss. The creatures share the heavy, quiet dark. The drifting marine snow continues to fall endlessly around the coelacanth and the resting ammonites. The tiny particulates catch in the microscopic eddies created by the coelacanth's slow, rhythmic fin movements, swirling in mesmerizing, miniature galaxies before resuming the long descent to the deep-sea mud. The visual white noise of the falling organic matter is profoundly hypnotizing, a constant, soothing reminder that the prehistoric world is infinitely patient, endlessly calm. A single, stray beam of pale, diffused moonlight, a lonely volumetric ray, miraculously pierces the heavy darkness, illuminating the coelacanth's deep indigo scales for a fleeting, beautiful moment. The soft light reveals the absolute perfection of the coelacanth's form, the heavy, prehistoric head, the large, unblinking eyes that have stared into the eternal dark for millions of years. The coelacanth is a guardian of deep time, holding the silent memories of the Earth's very dawn. With an incredibly slow, deliberate shift of the heavy tail, the Coelacanth begins to back away into the deepest charcoal shadows of the stone pillar. The movement is practically imperceptible, a gradual, ghostly fading into the surrounding heavy water. The Coelacanth does not turn and flee. The ancient fish simply allows the deep sea current to gently pull the armored body backward, absorbing the massive form into the safety of the dark abyss. The Coelacanth is slowly vanishing. As the Coelacanth finally disappears completely into the comforting void, the massive stone archway is left entirely silent, entirely empty. The drifting marine snow quickly reclaims the space, the tiny particulates falling undisturbed once more. The visual white noise of the ocean resumes its unbroken, eternal rhythm. The heavy water feels even calmer now, the deep sea hum settling into a lower, more profound frequency that vibrates gently against the muddy, prehistoric sea floor. Allow your heavy eyes to rest on the falling, drifting marine snow, filling the empty archway. The intricate, swirling geometry of the deep sea is designed to pull your consciousness downward, away from the surface, away from the light, away from the endless noise of the modern world. Here, in the absolute center of the prehistoric twilight zone, there are no expectations. There are no sudden movements. There is only the incredibly slow, heavy pulse of ancient, unbothered existence. The ancient rock pillars stand silent, their rounded, perfectly smooth surfaces bearing witness to the endless, falling snow. The ocean breathes in, the heavy tide pulling the dense water slightly backward. The ocean breathes out, the deep current pushing the particulates softly forward. This is the eternal, unchanging heartbeat of the prehistoric Earth, a rhythm that existed long before us, and a rhythm that will continue long after. Surrender your weight to this heavy, dark tide. We are drifting deeper still, leaving the smooth stone pillars and the resting Ammonites far behind in the upper twilight. The water temperature drops, becoming perfectly, refreshingly cool against the unseen current. The darkness here is absolute, save for the faintest, ghostly bioluminescence of the falling marine snow. The heavy pressure of the abyss acts as a thick, comforting blanket, wrapping completely around your tired mind, sealing you safely away in the ancient, velvet dark. The rhythmic, pendulum-like motion of our slow descent is deeply, inherently sleep-inducing. We are falling at the exact same speed as the microscopic particulates, drifting completely without effort, completely without fear. The prehistoric abyss is a sanctuary of profound, unbreakable rest. As we sink into the black, silent void, let your thoughts dissolve completely into the heavy, deep sea water. There is nothing left to do. There is nowhere left to go, only the slow, ancient drift. Out of the absolute, unbroken darkness of the deepest trench, a new, massive silhouette slowly begins to take form. The heavy, freezing water parts with immense, sluggish resistance, yielding gracefully to the arrival of a true prehistoric titan. This is the Archelon, the giant, ancient voyager of the primordial sea. The Archelon does not swim so much as it displaces the entire ocean around it, moving with a ponderous, majestic weight that commands the absolute silence of the deep. The Archelon is incredibly vast, a slow-moving island of leathery, ultra-detailed textures drifting endlessly through the heavy, muted aquamarine void. As the Archelon inches forward, the sheer physical mass of the creature creates a soothing, rhythmic pressure wave in the dense deep-sea current. You can feel this gentle, low-frequency hum vibrating softly against the heavy silt of the ocean floor. It is the steady, calming heartbeat of an eternal, completely unbothered existence. Watch the hypnotic, pendulum-like motion of the Archelon's massive, paddle-like front flippers. The heavy limbs rise incredibly slowly, fighting the dense water resistance with every deliberate inch. Then, with a soft, powerful downward stroke, the flippers press into the heavy current. The movement is an extreme slow-motion ballet, an effortless, deeply rhythmic, soaring through the thick, charcoal-colored water, up and down, the ultimate prehistoric metronome of the ancient sea. The enormous, rounded shell of the Archelon is a physical map of deep, unbroken time. Unlike the hard, bony plates of modern turtles, the Archelon's shell is stretched with a thick, ultra-detailed, leathery hide, colored in the deepest, most calming shades of oceanic blue and bruised indigo. The smooth surface bears the incredibly soft, naturally smoothed edges of a creature that has navigated these peaceful, dark waters for well over a century. There is no rush, only the long journey. Clinging peacefully to the very crest of the Archelon's massive, leathery back are beautiful, ancient barnacle-like hitchhikers. These tiny passengers are completely undisturbed by the giant's incredibly slow, rhythmic swimming patterns. Delicate, trailing strands of symbiotic flora sprout from the microscopic crevices around the barnacles, swaying gently in the soothing, miniature water currents created by the Archelon's heavy passage. The giant creature is a slow, drifting sanctuary. A single, pale, volumetric ray of diffused moonlight somehow penetrates this profound depth, painting a soft, shimmering streak across the Archelon's weathered, ancient face. The creature's incredibly dark, unblinking eyes hold the silent, heavy wisdom of the deep abyss. The Archelon blinks, a movement so slow, so profoundly deliberate, that it seems to take an eternity for the heavy, leathery eyelid to close and open again. The ancient watcher is perfectly calm, perfectly at rest. Suspended all around the magnificent Archelon, the drifting marine snow continues its completely silent, mesmerizing descent. As the heavy flippers push through the dense water, the tiny, glowing particulates are caught in the gentle, hypnotic wake. The marine snow swirls in beautiful, slow-motion spirals behind the giant, creating a soft, bioluminescent trail that hangs completely suspended in the dark, charcoal blue void. It is a visual lullaby woven directly into the heavy water. The Archelon opens its large, heavily textured beak, pulling in a massive draft of the cold, oxygen-rich deep-sea water. The creature holds this heavy, refreshing breath, allowing the cool liquid to soothe its enormous, slow-beating heart. Let your own breathing match this ancient, rhythmic cycle. As the Archelon's heavy flippers rise, take a long, incredibly deep inhale. As the massive flippers gently descend, release your breath, letting your physical body sink even deeper into rest. There are no sudden, jerky movements here. The sheer density of the prehistoric ocean absolutely forbids it. When the Archelon slightly adjusts its course to navigate around a gently sloping underwater dune, the heavy body leans with the deliberate, agonizing slowness of a sinking ship. The water resistance acts as a thick, comforting cushion, absorbing every ounce of the creature's immense momentum. The Archelon is completely cradled by the heavy, dark sea, entirely safe from the world. Down here, on the soft, rolling plains of the deep-sea mud, a tiny, resting trilobite is briefly disturbed by the Archelon's incredibly heavy passing shadow. The trilobite does not panic. It simply pulls its delicate legs slightly tighter beneath its beautifully smoothed shell. The Archelon glides harmlessly overhead, a benevolent, silent mountain drifting through the muted aquamarine sky. The absolute peace between the ancient creatures is a profound testament to this tranquil era. As the Archelon slowly continues its completely aimless, eternal drift, the deep sea hum seems to resonate harmoniously with the creature's incredibly slow, rhythmic flipper strokes. The sound is entirely muted, entirely muffled by the crushing, heavy pressure of the abyss. A soothing, low-frequency drone that acts as the ultimate natural white noise. The vibration wraps around your tired mind like a heavy, velvet blanket, pulling you further and further away from the waking world. Slowly, the Archelon begins to angle its massive, leathery body toward a slight, incredibly gentle upward current. The ancient giant is not seeking the bright surface, but rather a perfectly suspended mid-water layer where the water temperature is perfectly uniformly cool. The Archelon stops actively swimming and simply allows its immense weight to perfectly balance against the soft, lifting current. The giant creature becomes completely weightless, hanging perfectly still in the void. Suspended in this heavy, completely dark equilibrium, the Archelon enters a state of profound ancient sleep. The creature's incredibly slow heart rate drops even further, beating just a few deliberate times every hour. The massive flippers hang completely limp, swaying only to the microscopic, pendulum-like push and pull of the deep-sea tides. The Archelon is entirely surrendered to the ocean, a perfect, living embodiment of absolute trust and absolute surrender to the silent dark. The drifting marine snow settles softly onto the sleeping Archelon's broad, flat back. The tiny particulates accumulate slowly, blending the sleeping giant perfectly into the surrounding visual white noise. Within moments, it is entirely impossible to tell where the heavy water ends and where the ancient, leathery creature begins. The Archelon has become one with the prehistoric abyss, a completely hidden, completely silent monument to the restorative, healing power of deep time. Let your own consciousness drift freely into this exact same deeply suspended state. You are completely weightless, completely supported by the heavy, cool water of the ancient ocean. There is absolutely nothing you need to carry. The sheer density of the deep sea will easily hold your burdens for you. Watch the faint, soft moonlight filter gently through the dark water column above, casting the very last, fading shadows across the sleeping Archelon. You are entirely safe in this dark, as the final muted aquamarine tones of the deep water slowly fade into an absolute, comforting charcoal black. The prehistoric world fully exhales. The ancient sentinels of the deep have assumed their silent watch. The drifting marine snow will continue to fall for millions of years, an eternal, deeply hypnotic hourglass, measuring the slow, heavy passage of deep time. Breathe in the absolute silence. Breathe out the final traces of the day. The abyss is welcoming you into perfect rest. Feel the gentle, rhythmic sway of the deep sea current slowly rocking your tired body, back and forth, back and forth. The sleeping Archelon is your massive, completely silent anchor in this vast prehistoric void. Every time the heavy water pushes against you, it is met with an equally soft, incredibly comforting resistance. The physics of this ancient underwater world are designed solely to cradle you, to rock you into the deepest, most profound state of heavy, unbroken relaxation. Rest your heavy eyes and completely let go. The dark, charcoal depths are entirely empty of demands, entirely empty of urgency. The Trilobite slumbers in the soft mud, the Coelacanth waits in the deep shadows, and the Archelon drifts in suspended, eternal peace. You are perfectly woven into this silent, deeply calming tapestry of ancient life. Let the visual white noise of the marine snow completely cover you, dragging your final, sleepy thoughts down into the deepest, quietest dark. The prehistoric night has fully settled over the vast, untouched expanse of the primordial abyss. Down here, far below the breaking waves and the shifting tides of the surface, time itself seems to slow down, thickening like the dense, heavy water that surrounds us. There is absolutely no dawn waiting to break this eternal, comforting twilight. There is only the continuous, soothing present, a profoundly quiet sanctuary where the heavy pulse of life beats in an incredibly slow, deliberate rhythm. Suspended perfectly within the deep, muted aquamarine void, the visual white noise of the drifting marine snow continues its endless, mesmerizing fall. Millions of tiny, glowing particulates drift downward in absolute silence, painting the dark charcoal shadows with soft, bioluminescent constellations. The snow falls without any urgency, without any destination in mind. It is simply surrendering entirely to the gentle, heavy pull of the ancient deep. Allow yourself to surrender to just letting go. Resting softly on the smooth, silty mud of the ocean floor, the tiny trilobite remains completely motionless. The beautifully smoothed curves of its ancient shell are now perfectly dusted with a fine layer of the falling organic snow. The microscopic symbiotic flora, waving gently from its back, are the only signs of the deep, quiet life held safely inside. The trilobite does not fear the heavy, dark water. It is completely protected, entirely cradled by the soft, rolling plains of the deep sea bed. High above the resting trilobite, nestled within the smooth, rounded geometry of the towering stone pillars, the Coelacanth hovers in a state of suspended animation. The heavy, lobed fins are completely still now, perfectly balanced against the incredibly gentle push of the deep water current. The ancient fish's ultra-detailed indigo scales blend seamlessly into the absolute darkness. The Coelacanth is a master of deep time, entirely content to rest within the silent, protecting shadows of the rock. Drifting gently near the smooth roof of the rocky archway, the cluster of Ammonites sways with a hypnotic, pendulum-like motion. Their perfect, mathematically spiraled shells catch the very last, fading traces of ambient moonlight, a ghostly, pale reflection in the crushing dark. The delicate tentacles remain safely withdrawn, the creatures entirely relaxed in the heavy, cool water. The incredibly slow, rhythmic breathing of the Ammonites creates a microscopic, soothing vibration in the heavy, liquid void. And further out, suspended completely weightless in the open, charcoal-colored water, the giant Archelon sleeps. The massive, leathery flippers hang completely limp, swaying only to the incredibly soft, invisible breath of the prehistoric ocean. The Archelon is an island of pure, unbothered tranquility. The immense weight of the ancient creature is perfectly supported by the extreme density of the sea. A beautiful, living reminder that the heavy currents of time are meant to carry us, not to crush us. Notice how the deep-sea hum has completely settled into the lowest, most comforting frequency imaginable. It is a soft, muffled drone that you feel deep within your chest, a steady, rumbling lullaby from the prehistoric Earth itself. The heavy sound completely absorbs any remaining tension in your tired muscles. The vibration flows through the thick water, gently massaging away the sharp, stressful edges of the modern world, leaving only the smooth, rounded geometry of absolute, profound, and ancient peace. Take a long, incredibly slow breath in, feeling the cool, refreshing weight of the prehistoric ocean filling your lungs. Hold it for a brief, quiet moment, just as the sleeping Archelon holds the heavy water in its massive chest. And now, let the breath completely out, releasing it into the endless stream of drifting marine snow. Watch your breath dissolve into the visual white noise, completely vanishing into the heavy, dark current. There is absolutely nothing left for your tired mind to hold on to. The myth of the ancient ocean is that it was a place of endless, frenzied motion, but the profound truth of the abyss is its eternal, unbroken stillness. Before the rushing winds and the fast-paced lives of the modern world, there was this heavy, beautiful silence. Life did not rush to exist. Life drifted. The ancient ancestors of the sea survived not through panic, but through extreme patience, by moving slowly, breathing deeply, and trusting the heavy, gentle currents to provide absolutely everything. This is the ultimate, timeless secret of the prehistoric deep. True endurance comes from finding your perfect, neutral buoyancy in the dark. It comes from allowing the incredibly heavy water to simply push against you, absorbing the natural resistance without fighting back. The Coelacanth, the Ammonite, the Trilobite, and the Archelon. They all know the profound value of sinking into the shadows. They embrace the heavy, crushing pressure of the deep sea, and they let it turn them into something perfectly calm. Let the incredibly heavy, velvet darkness wrap entirely around your consciousness. The last dim, volumetric rays of diffused moonlight have completely faded away, leaving only the soft, comforting bioluminescence of the falling snow. The visual white noise is your sole companion now. A gentle, flickering blanket that protects your mind from the waking hours. You are drifting freely, sinking deeper and deeper into the muted aquamarine void, moving further away from the surface with every incredibly slow heartbeat. The prehistoric tides are turning, an impossibly slow, majestic shifting of the Earth's very foundation. You can feel the deep water pulling you gently backward, a soothing, pendulum-like motion that completely rocks your heavy body. You are entirely safe in this ancient current. The heavy, dark water is a sanctuary, a place where time stands absolutely still. The primordial ocean has held these sleeping creatures for hundreds of millions of years, and it will effortlessly hold you for the rest of the night. Breathe in, feeling the extreme slowness of the ancient world. Breathe out, feeling the massive, comforting weight of the abyss. The sleeping giants of the deep ask absolutely nothing of you. The endless, falling marine snow requires no attention. The smooth, charcoal-colored rocks offer only their silent, rounded protection. You are simply a quiet, unbothered witness to the oldest, most peaceful rhythm on the planet. The deep sea is a masterclass in profound relaxation, a heavy, liquid embrace that never ends. Listen closely to the absolute silence, the incredibly profound, heavy absence of noise that can only be found at the very bottom of the ancient world. The muted, deep-sea hum is practically an extension of your own slow, rhythmic pulse. The water here is so dense, so perfectly still, that a single drop of disturbance would take an absolute eternity to ripple through the void. The sheer patience of this environment is intoxicating, drawing your heavy consciousness down into a state of absolute, unbreakable hibernation. As you drift completely without effort, notice how the very concept of time has dissolved into the heavy, black water. Minutes and hours hold absolutely no meaning down here in the primordial deep. There is only the incredibly slow, majestic shifting of the ocean currents, moving back and forth with the gentle, rhythmic predictability of a resting heartbeat. The ancient abyss does not count the passing seconds. It simply exists, breathing in and breathing out, wrapped entirely in a profound, magnificent, eternal twilight. The ultra-detailed textures of the prehistoric mud below you hold the silent, peaceful memories of a billion quiet nights just like this one. Every tiny grain of sand, every microscopic piece of organic matter is a testament to the soothing, slow decay and rebirth of the ancient ocean. There is a perfect mathematical harmony to the way the heavy water compresses the silt, smoothing out the rough edges of the deep sea floor into a beautiful, rolling landscape of pure, unbothered charcoal and soft, muted aquamarine. Allow the incredible, soothing density of the prehistoric twilight zone to completely fill the space behind your heavy, resting eyes. The visual white noise of the marine snow is no longer just falling around you. The tiny, glowing particulates are falling slowly within your very mind, burying your waking thoughts under a thick, comforting blanket of bioluminescent quiet. The gentle, pendulum-like motion of the ancient, unseen tides rocks the deepest parts of your sleepy soul, bringing absolute, undeniable tranquility. You are completely untethered from the rushing world above, safely locked away in a time millions of years before the first sunrise ever mattered. The deep sea sanctuary is your ancient, quiet refuge. The heavy, dark water is a perfect, isolating shield against the noise of tomorrow. The resting Ammonite, the sleeping Coelacanth, and the massive, drifting Archelon are your silent guardians, keeping the heavy, beautiful piece of the abyss completely intact as you surrender your final ounce of wakefulness to the dark. As the silent, heavy water completely absorbs your final, fleeting thoughts, the ancient sentinels of the deep slowly begin to fade entirely from view. The massive outline of the Archelon blends completely into the absolute black. The indigo scales of the Coelacanth are swallowed by the deep shadows. The perfect spirals of the Ammonites dissolve into the dark stone. Only the incredibly faint, rhythmic hum of the prehistoric ocean remains, a steady, eternal drone that lulls the entire ancient world into a deep sleep. There is no ending to this quiet, underwater journey, only a gentle, continuous transition into the deepest, most restorative slumber. The heavy currents of deep time will keep you perfectly suspended, perfectly balanced until you are ready to rise back to the surface. Until then, remain here in the comforting, prehistoric dark. Let the incredibly slow, heavy pulse of the ancient abyss be the very last thing you feel. Drift completely away, carried by the silent, gentle weight of an ocean perfectly at rest. The ancient waters have shared their deepest, most tranquil secret with you. The primordial abyss is not a void to be feared, but a profoundly calm sanctuary of slow, deliberate life. May the incredibly heavy, soothing currents of the prehistoric sea continue to wash away your exhaustion, leaving you as smooth and peaceful as the oldest resting stone. Find your deep rest here, suspended perfectly in the silent dark. Please like and subscribe.